I'm not supposed to tell anybody about this story. In fact, I would have sworn to the military themselves that I would not tell anyone about this story. But there's just no one on this earth. I can keep this story to myself, but it's just so shocking and unbelievably smelly that must share it with you. This story is about a certain video game known as Uncharted Free, Drake's Deception. Let me tell you, saying that the game brings me back happy memories of a time not so long ago, and yet very long ago. Uncharted Free is the third installment of the Uncharted series, and it was released for PlayStation 3 in 2011. It was later remastered for PS4 along with Uncharted 1 and 2. Now I have a really rather experience of a dodgy copy of Uncharted 2, which laid me getting pressed on and placed into a high security of orders of General R. Asquith. General Asquith had arranged me to be given a death penalty, but later learned from the contract that I was not responsible for creating Uncharted 2 bootleg. In a reaction to this information, General Asquith let me go in order to accompany him by the Tower of Chili Charlie and Babby Bob. The Tower of Chili and Charlie and Babby Bob was a tower that was once ruled by two mighty cats known as Chili Charlie and Babby Bob. Sadly, both cats have long passed away, and along doing so, the tower has been converted into a research facility of all things related to lost media. Every time a lost media project, like Uncharted 2 bootleg, was released to the public, it is brought over to the tower to be investigated. The person in charge of the tower was none other than General Warren R. Morger and W.R. Munger, if you are cheeky little Mr. Cheeky. General Munger is the American corrupted part of General Asquith, and a pair of these arch rivals. They have both conflicting views on how to handle crises involving lost media. General Asquith leads the British military while W.R. Munger leads the American army, which had led to be served to inspire some of the conflict between the two generals. Anyways, General R. Asquith and I arrived at the Tower of Chili Charlie and Babby Bob. The Golden Door was as open as Major Thomas Blake, and Major Blake was in charge of security any lost media projects for General Asquith and General Munger. Did we really have to bring this punk here, Blakey? General Asquith asked, while we made our way inside the tower with the Major Blake closing the doors tight behind us. We most certainly did, Commander. We needed to hear of a man that we know. Major Blake then turned the face to me and he said, "You've already been subjected to be the bootleg of Uncharted game. Now we'll just need to put this to the test." Major Blake then held up a PS3 copy of Uncharted Free. The cover was completely normal, but the back of it did stink. It smelled like a rotten shadab. "Oh yes, I went there," General Munger said. "We'll want to speak with you." Major Blake then said when he made his way upstairs towards the viewing room. The viewing room laying on top of the tower was various pictures placed on the walls. The pictures were the finest people in history, including Colonel Dodo, Richard Fatchard, Boris Johnson, Reb Vanels, Lucas Barcy, and Mr. Parks. At the very front of the viewing room sat a huge screen which is supposed to view any of the bootlegs which were brought to the tower. That's when General W.R. Munger appeared on the screen in the scene as Major Blake then stood by his side with some kind of other butler who craves the attention like a doctor once craved for butter. General W.R. Munger made his way over to me and said, "Listen, son, we need your help. Turns out that stupid bastard Asquith was completely wrong about arresting you for making the Uncharted 2 bootleg." He then continued with, "According to the resources, the bootleg was created by a cockroach who was served his pints at the Purple Otter. Listen, I love to help, but I really would. I was then cut off by General W.R. Munger led me down by his soldiers. I'm afraid I wasn't asking for your opinion on Mr. McAfee, but now you are do as you are told." General Munger barked with a gruff voice as he forced General Asquith to lit him a cigar. Also, I should mention that General Munger uses a jetpack to get around places because he's too lazy to walk. How lazy he is. Major Blake then then came into the room and placed a large wooden chair in the center of the room for me to sit on. "Thanks," I said, as I got a hand on the PS3 controller by one of Monger's soldiers. "This better be a good Asquith, or else Trump will be having the words right with you soon enough." W.R. Munger barked as he punched General Asquith in the stomach. It kind of reminded me of the time Big Smoke was tormented by Frank temporarily, but not selling enough drugs. General Asquith was the lapdog, and W.R. Munger was the street paddler. The plot was getting juicy. Anyways, Major Blank meanwhile bust himself by popping the disc of the Uncharted Free into a nearby PlayStation 3, which sat on top of the large brown and right down smelly table. The game started off with the usual Naughty Dog logo. Then it cut to the main menu. It looked very wrong. The desert sand, which was red, had made me vomit all over Jake Blake's bald head, which disgusted Asquith by making Monger pull it to his smug face. So smugged, in fact, that he made me vomit again. "Oh, for Christ's sake, keep it up, will you?" W.R. Monger barked angrily at the top of his lungs while one of his soldiers shoved a kebab into my mouth. Anyways, I clicked on New Game, and the difficulties were very easy, normal, hard, crushing, and beans on toast. Okay, this was getting weird, so I decided to click on beans on toast option. Oh, what a big mistake, let me tell ya. The game started off with Nathan Drake and Victor Sullivan meeting with the man named Talbot in the bar as normal. That's when Charlie Cutter then just appeared on screen, and it put a large steel briefcase onto the table of Nate and Sully. He opened up the case to learn that it was filled with very, very angry bees. The bees were so incredibly angry they swarmed around Nate and Sully. Talbot, meanwhile, stole the dance away outside. Cutler was meanwhile trying his best to catch the bees, but they ended up lifting him high in the sky. "Huh, what?" Cutter asked, but as the bees ended up flying him to the evening sky. Why did it have to be bees?" Sully cried as the bees stung him all over his gray mustache. The game then did do a cut where it shows the part where Nate, Sully, and Cutter were breaking into the London Underground while there. Nate and Sully were being shown still pulling their stings. The trio had made its way into the underground tunnels, and while the spicy music began to play in the background. Arriving at Catherine Marlowe's underground museum, Nate and Sully were still pulling the bee stingers off their bodies when Cutler made a wickedly wicked smirk. Marlowe then appeared on the screen and chewed out the tablet for trusting Cutler as normal. After Marlowe departed the scene, the trio made their way into the museum. At the museum, Nate and Sully found the Wheel of Fortune, which led them to the direction of the Ram Pillars. While doing this, some of Marlowe's agents came into the room. Upon seeing Nate and Sully, cried, "Oh my wickers! Someone called the boss!" Nate and Sully and Cutter were forced to shoot their way through the London Underground tunnels before they were even had a chance to find out the Golden Hind. Meanwhile, at the museum, the two fought their way through upon waves of Marlowe agents as normal. However, while running down the train tracks, Nate heard loud noises coming from behind him. "Oh, buggering Buggerton," Nate said as he turned around to see none other than Thomas the Tank Engine coming towards him. Come on, Talbot cried as he was driving Thomas. "Trains? Why did it have to be trains?" Nate asked as Thomas chased him and the others down the London Underground. Cutler and Sully were both being crushed by Thomas, but Nate managed to escape. He made his way deeper underground. Suddenly, Thomas grew a very big and very hairy legs and began running towards Nate in a very awkward kind of way. It looked like Thomas needed to take a crap. "Oh!" Thomas yelled at the top of his lungs, and he ended up crashing into another train, which was carrying loads of fruit. Smashed the fruit ended up getting all over Thomas's food, and loud farting noises could be heard playing in the background on a constant loop. The next chapter ended with Nate, Sully, and Chloe Pfizer drinking cups of tea in a brisk in Cutter's apartment as normal. But that's when Cutter let out a massive fart, which made it smell really bad, as you could actually smell it through the television screen. I guess General W.R. Munger and Asquith had installed the smell-o-vision, haven't you? "Oh, good lord," Chloe cried at the top of her lungs while Sully chomped out of a smelly cigar, apparently not fazed whatsoever by the foul stench. "Let's go and do it," Cutter proclaimed while giving Nate a friendly punch to the arm. Sadly, Cutter ended up getting punched by Kate so hard that it caused his arm to fall off. "Oh!" Nate cried as he fell to the floor in pain. "Poor Bob the tomato." The game then cuts to show Nate and Sully arriving at France in order to find the first half of the Emlet, which led them to a Aram in the pillars. Now this mission was completely normal. The only thing I could say about it was that Nate and Sully didn't talk to the entire chapter, and all the puzzles had already been solved. Not that I minded anyway, I hate puzzles. I guess you could call me a puzzle hater? Anyways, Nate and Sully eventually removed the Emlet and tried to get confront outside by the crypt by Talbot. "Yeah, that's right, hand in man, Harris. Nice work, gentlemen," Talbot said before continuing with, "Harris, please leave Mr. Drake from the artifact." So Harrison grabbed the Emlet from Nate's hands, and he began to make his way over towards Talbot when a faint singing noise can be heard from the walls. Besides Harris, "What was that?" Harris asked as a fat and downright ugly mole climbed out of the walls. "You're so yummy, fat," the mole sang as he leapt out of Harris, who began to begged for Dallas Coleman to save his life, for at least till he get him a big bag of cheese and onion crisps. "Well, I'm not qualified for this, Harris," Dallas Coleman said as he began rubbing the back of his head while pushing the incredibly wicked Dallas Coleman smirk. The kind of smirk that you would only get with a mother could love. So Harris was killed by the mole and then was forced Nate and Sully to sing the sea shanties with it. Thankfully, however, the game then cut to black before Molly could then continue to sing. After 150 seconds, the game then came back on to show Nate and Sully arriving in Syria in search for the other half of the Emlet. In Syria, Nate and Sully reunited with Cutter and Chloe as the group made their way towards a large castle as normal. While in the castle, Nate was not thrown out of the window by one of Marlowe's agents as normal. No, instead, the white giant appears on the screen and then starts shaking the castle up violently up and down as if it was the salt shaker or some crap like that. "I still want my chicken back, Donald Duck," Willie yelled angrily as he bit into the castle, which caused Nate and the others to fall down deep in the darkness abyss. Nate then looked up at the screen and then remarked, "It's been one of those days." The group then fell for what seemed to be like hours. In reality, it was only 15 seconds. The best 15 seconds in my life. Yes, quite pathetic. Afterwards, Talbot and his agents confronted Nate and the others at the edge of the castle. "We appear to be even matched," Talbot joked, while all of a sudden the fat, smelly mole appeared on screen again. "You're so yummy, fat," the mole said, singing in his nasty voice as it cradled Talbot, while Nate and the others looked on in amazement. "Mate, that mole has some fine pair of lungs," Cutter remarked as the screen then cuts to the group getting onto the bus in order to escape the pursuit of Marlowe's agents. On the bus, the groups were dismayed and learned that being driven home was none other than Richard Fatchett's most insane bus inside of Scotland. Even though they weren't in Scotland in this chapter, they were in Syria. But what the hell, right? Thomas the Tank Engine, he's got yellow eyes, custard eyes, Richard sang as he took the group for a drive in their lives. Nate and Sully then plotted with Cutter again and Chloe against to take control of the bus. Sadly, Richard was far too quick for them and slammed his foot down on the pedals, causing the group to fall back into their seats. "It's not just worth the time, Nate. This one's to go," Chloe said as Nate responded with, "Will do." He then let out an incredibly massive loud fart, which caused Richard to lose control for the bus for some reason. The bus ended up spinning around uncontrollably before crashing into a ditch in the outskirts of Syria, where a green man once mourned the loss of his best friend, who is a massive shoot. Sorry about that, massive tangent, but I mean, what's next? A washing machine in the car? For example, Central Radio and its rocking Ricky Fox? Look at that, and making fun of Richards being insane when I'm just as bad. Maybe I'm a real arsehole, but in this story, but whatever. The game then did a massive time skip with Nate arriving at Rames's ship. After coming on to, Nate was dismayed to learn that the ship was run by none other than Gordon Ramsay himself. Get out! Upstairs right now! Gordon Ramsay yelled at the top of his lungs as Nate was forced to head into the kitchen to make Gordon something to eat. You donkey! Gordon Ramsay yelled as Nate tried his best to cook up some eggs and toast. It looks like my asshole was on Saturday night, Gordon yelled as he picked the greasy egg up and frying it at Nate's face. While Nate was doing his best to cook something for Ramsay to eat for dinner, Gordon Ramsay retired to his trailer and made himself a cup of coffee. He then learned that somehow the door had unlocked itself from outside. Hello? Gordon Ramsay asked as the incredibly two smelly janitors just appeared on the screen to help Chef Ramsay escape. I have an axe, don't be scared of Senior Ramsay, one of the janitors said as he began chopping away at the trailer with the door of the axe. The janitor was incredibly powerful than him and took him many swings to achieve his purpose. Gordon Ramsay, meanwhile, bust himself while playing Shrek 2 on his Xbox. He got some good taste. After this, the game went back normally for the most part. Nate arrived back in Yemen, where he reunited with his estranged wife, Lena Fisher. With Aline's help, Nate was able to climb onto the plane, which is planned to drop off supplies to Marlo and her agents that were riding into a convoy into the Rub al Khali desert. On the plane, Nate got lengthily at fist fight with some Marlo's agents as normal. But, however, Nate didn't even bother climbing out of the plane. Instead, he stayed on the plane as it plumbed towards the desert below. Crashing in the desert, Nate came out from underneath the wreckage, permanently not harmed or unfazed whatsoever by the plane crashed. He picked up a bag of chips from the wreckage and began sniffing it as it was some kind of Mr. Bean. Nate began making his way through the Al-Rub desert. Once again, the sand was red, and I was about to vomit. But Major Blake held my mouth with a pair of clippers. Don't even think about it, buddy, General Mongler yelled before continuing with, just focus on the game. Wow, look at my army general. Senator Lee has a potty mouth, doesn't he? How unbelievably rude. Well, while walking through the desert, Nate ended up collapsing when he somehow found none other than Colonel Dodo waving at him by a nearby hill. Over here, boy! Over here, my boy! Colonel Dodo proclaimed as he gestured Nate to follow him. Nate then came up to where Colonel Dodo, and he was dismayed to learn that wasn't the Rub al Khali desert. No, instead he crashed and landed in Washington Beach, located in Vince City. Turns out that Nate was wrong. The frame of the pillars was actually being held in Vince City, not Yemen. Oh, wistfully bliss. Nate and Colonel Dodo had themselves a lovely barbecue. Meanwhile, Marlo and Talbot discovered the Atlantis in the sands. However, that's when they learned about that there was no treasure, only sand. The pair were just stomped and killed by Willie the Giant, who proclaimed, I came to dinner for once. And with that, the game then came to now Sully, just chilling on his sun lounger and drinking a glass of wine. Ah, this reminds me of the time after time, Sully remarked as he drank down his wine, and with Nate and Dodo made some burgers on the grill in the background. The game then cut to as the PlayStation 3 began to make horrifying noises. What the hell's going on? General W.R. Munger yelled as he began shooting at the console with his shotgun. Suddenly, the large blue goo began coming out of the black console, and it fell onto the floor into a big mess. What? I asked, and all of a sudden the gloop grew large in my eyeball and a mouth. The gloop would then transform into a big blob. What was this shaking, General Munger? The blob asked before introducing himself as Bob. Under the gesture of the emergency protocols, I advise you to execute this blob, General Asquith demanded as the soldiers began firing bullets at Bob, but they had no effect. Bob then began eating some of the soldiers who were digested and dissolved into Bob's body. The gross thing was that Bob, you could see through, actually see the people, actually got ingested in 10 seconds flat. Major Blake then attempted to reason with Bob by saying, these men are innocent. Surely your kind have the articles of war. What? Bob asked as he ate Major Blake up in one big bite. Blakey, General Asquith cried as he sunk to his knees. Can I go home? I asked. General Moncur said, no, I need your help sending this person to justice or whatever. General Asquith Monger then made his way outside towards the local telephone in order to request for Great Britain to be placed under martial law until Bob is brought down. I'm taken downtown, Anyways, Bob then said to me, "I may not have a brain, friend, but I have an idea," he then proclaimed, and proceeded to look at me with an incredibly weird face with good 20 minutes. And then after doing so, Bob then told me what I should just erase my data from the file from the tower's database. With Bob's help, I was able to hack onto the computer's database and erase any evidence from me getting the 2 Uncharted bootlegs. I then asked Bob about the cockroach who made the games. "Oh, he's off on holiday in Gran Canaria with his lover Sam and Lips," Bob explained. "Okay, I need some sort of Jimmy D. Santa," as I began making my way out of the tower. Meanwhile, Bob floated down to the sewers and he said, "I could really use some help with Jelly. I'm so happy to report that everything turned out just fine." I was able to return to my normal life. Meanwhile, President Trump and Boris Johnson disgraced with how Bob had disappeared, forced General Asquith and General Mongol to do some street work. Last I heard, the pair were sweeping up the roads of Baskuka City. Ever been there? Oh, believe me when I say that you don't want to. It's so bad. It's so bad, clean it properly," Mongol yelled as he began angrily hitting General Asquith over the head with a broomstick. Meanwhile, I went back into writing. The manager and was able to write a very successful novel called A Boy in His Nose. It is certainly most successful look at the published Grenade, and also, so I heard, Bob had indeed headed to Gran Canaria to hang with Cockroach and his weird monkey lizard hybrid part-time lover. I'll be honest, that Uncharted 3 bootleg was not quite as bad as Uncharted 2 one. However, I still find it to be very smelly and downright stupidly in some areas. I must admit, I do wonder if the Cockroach made the bootlegs of the other Uncharted games, or any other video games for that matter. I've got to go, my dear friends, for a while I've got some saving to do. I do need to hear of the man to be known. I need James P. Sullivan. And that, my little pretties, was, Uncharted Free Cursed Copy. A Uncharted game, Lost Game creepypasta written by Matthew Bumford. Matthew Bumford, I want to thank you so much for sending me this story. Now, I've been wanting to get to this for a very long time, and finally I got the opportunity to get to this story. So, I am going to say right now that this story, it was amazing. Oh my goodness, Matthew Bumford. This story was really good. Oh my goodness. This story was awesome. Now, before I narrated this story, I actually read through this and I was actually laughing at certain parts because it was so funny. Oh my god, it was so funny. I did have to take multiple takes because I stifled a few laughs, or I just burst out laughing randomly. Now, of course, this is actually a pretty interesting game. I'm definitely going to say right now that this is actually a really interesting game. Now, I've not played Uncharted 3, so I don't really know about the game that much, because I don't know the game, so since I don't know the game, I really have to say that the game is just really good from what I did here. I will consider taking a look at it, but even though I've never played it, well, I might, considering if I get the opportunity to play it. But anyways, with that being said, let's get on with the story. Now, for one, I could definitely say there's not really much for me to explain when it comes to reviewing Matthew Bumford's stories, because Matthew Bumford's stories are actually really good and well made. That is a very good possibility that I'm going to say right now, is that this story was really good. Most of his stories are pretty good, and I have read some other ones in the past, last year and even this year. If you guys want to go check out Matthew Bumford's stories, feel free to do so, because you will not be disappointed once you do see it. And I'm going to say right now that I remember seeing this story. I think it was floating around on Goshia at one point, and I just needed to find some time to get to it. And finally, I was able to get to this story. And Matthew Bumford, I have to say, you did a really good job with this story. I honestly really say that you did really well with this story. And that's a very good thing when I'm going at. Seeing stories like this is just amazing. Like, it makes me smile every time I read one of your stories. It's amazing. There's time and effort into the story. The grammar's really good and everything about it. Now, about this story, I'm gonna say, well, I don't have anything negative to say about it, but I could see this being the case, with someone finding a bootleg, well, basically someone's playing like the bootleg version of Uncharted, and then crazy things start happening. This is not completely out of the ordinary for, Matthew Bumford stories to do that, because Matthew Bumford writes really good stories, and although I know some funny pastas don't tend to make a whole lot of sense, but this is actually really amazing and well made. I'm definitely have to say, when I read Uncharted 2, I found number 2 to be just as good as this one. And number 2, and this one, the third one, I have to say, was just as good as the first one. Like, well, the second story that I narrated, which I could definitely say right now that this is actually a pretty good story, in my opinion. Now, the grammar of this story is absolutely amazing, well done. Although it's pretty good in my opinion. Like, the storyline of how it all went out was just flat out amazing. The sentence structuring worked out well, and the paragraph structuring worked out great. So that's kind of why I like reading more Matthew Bumford stories. I'm going to have to read more of his stories in the future. When I get the opportunity, I'm going to have to take a look at, reading more of Matthew Bumford's stories, because I just love reading his stories, and I just love how he adds, certain characters, going through certain things and stuff. That is just flat out amazing, man. That was just awesome. I could be wrong, but it's actually pretty good when it comes to this. I just actually say I really like this story. Now, this is on Go Wiki. If any of you guys are wondering, you guys are more than welcome to, take a look at it if you guys want to. You feel free to read this story. I may put a link in this description. I probably should put a link in the description if you guys want to take a look at the story. I'll put a link in the description for you guys to check it out, because it's really funny, and you guys will love it. So, I really have to say. Now, I already said about the good things about it. I don't have anything negative to say about it, so that's one thing I'm gonna say is I don't have any negatives with it. So I'm gonna go right ahead and wrap up the review as as this is like going as long as it can. So I'm gonna be completely honest with this. Alright, now I'm gonna say right now that and like I always continue to say, this is simply my own personal opinion, and if you disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of the story is a 10 out of 10. Great concept, great storyline, grammar's good, it's funny, and everything about it was just flat out amazing, very well detailed. I don't understand why creepypastas nowadays just don't put as much detail or effort as they used to. But Matthew Bumford, next to the Dark Cat and other people, they did pretty good. And if you guys want to, write a pasta, take a look at this one for an example, and you will, get the idea of, what you could do when you're coming to read, like, a lost episode pasta. But anyways, what did you all think about this creepypasta? Or funny pasta? I know you guys are probably going to call more of it a funny pasta, but you guys could decide. Did you all enjoy it? Did you all not? Also, what you have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Leaving out your thoughts down in the comment section down below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. If you're brand new here to this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload, so then you guys won't miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro, because I'm out of here, and I will be seeing you all in the next episode and the next video. So peace out, and I'll catch you all later.